Welcome to this next lesson where we are just moving on from what we just finished off in the previous lesson. So in the last lesson, we built a reusable master prompt. And in this lesson, I'm just going to briefly show you how I would organize my prompt library in a way that it looks like a real AI workflow. So like the reason that this is really important is that if I organize this properly, the next sections or the next times that I need to get something done in terms of those specific tasks is just going to be about using repetitively the same prompt. And I don't have to re-prompt the whole model to get an output that I'm looking for. So that's how you'd have to, come up with a way to categorize your prompt engineering. Now, so think of it this way. So, for instance, this is my finder. This is how, if anyone that uses a Mac or is familiar with the Mac system, this is our folder directory. So if you're using a Windows device, you'll be using the File Explorer. So you just have a folder, and inside that folder, you probably have another folder, and then you have a file like a Word document, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever kind of documents, right? So when it comes to organizing your personal AI workflow, looking at all that we've discussed or all that we've done in the past lessons, what I would task you to do is that you can see the course materials and see how this is structured, but ideally, this is about the time where you have to now reflect and internalize some of these things into your own day-to-day activities. What job do you do? What role do you do at your workplace? What are some of the repetitive tasks that you do on a daily basis? Some of those things. So this is where you need to get that out. So in my context, me working at a company called Brightspark, what I do is that I'm assuming the role as an operations manager or an operations administrator. Now, as an operations administrator, I would create a top level folder called, say, operations. I'll call it operations prompt library, right? So there's the name there. Operations role prompt library. So in this folder, I'm gonna have other folders, and these other folders would represent some of the key. So if I go here, some of the key things that I do repetitively. So I know I do a lot of emails, and some of those emails, other than the ad hoc emails, I just reply people asking for certain things, but there are some specific, let's say repetitive emails I just interact with on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. I would create a folder for that kind of task. Now, I know I have a lot of meetings during the week, during the month. It could be with internal team members, or it could be with third party vendors and all that. I'm going to create another folder for things to do with meetings. And then I know I am an administrator at the end of the week or at the end of the month. I have to be providing reports. So I'm going to create a folder for reports. And then my everyday productivity, any ad hoc things I feel like I do on an everyday basis, I can't really categorize. But like, it would be nice if I had a way to automate or to use AI to assist me with. I'll create that folder. Now, all these folders, they are just a sub-level of the main role folder. So in each of these folders, we are going to have a categorization of other things. So I would always suggest you start with a top-level folder within the main folder called core workflow. And this core workflow basically is just going to have an instruction on how you're supposed to be using your prompts. And then in each of all these folders, you're going to have a repetitive sub folder that has the master prompt that relates to that specific task. And then you also have a folder that has at least some examples from source materials that relate to that task. And then how some output looks, how the finished product looks. So it then looks like it knows how your tone and your structure and all, how you do your outputs, so that's going to be applied to all of these. So when it comes to my repetitive tasks that has to do with workplace emails, I have a master prompt that's going to tell the AI how I want the emails to be written, how it should be structured, the tone, and all that. And I have examples that show how I write my emails. And I also have source documents as in some of the specific kinds of emails that I need help to be specifically helping, I need help to write on the go. And I also have some final versions of how I actually sent emails related to some of those. So that whenever I plug in this prompt, then I can just reference these examples, and then the source document will be whatever week I'm working in, use whatever current source document, plug it in, and then get it to give me a new one. And the beauty of it is whatever output you get for that week, you can record it as a final version. You can also use final versions as source documents or reference examples. So the reference examples is just a start off. But obviously, if you keep updating this, you would then be getting more and more refined improvements on how the model is going to be outputting, so long as you feed it to it. So that's how you break down your day-to-day work and create top-level photos, and then you have this kind of schema to follow whenever you're trying to come up with organizing your own personal workflows. So, for instance, if I go to my core workflow, when I go to operations, this is the master prompt that actually shows me how I need to be using this whole flow. It tells me about the role context, and that this is going to be best for emails, meeting notes, and all that. And this is basically what we built in the previous lesson. Now, when it comes to specific tasks like workplace emails, and then go to the master prompt, you can see that this is a bridge version of the core of the master prompt that's only targeted to email. You see, task type is email. And then I'll just change all the placeholders I need to change, and then attach other documents that are related to that specific week. And then I'll get a final version that I need to use as whatever. And that's going to be applied to all these others. So each of these sub-level folders, they would have master prompts that are specific to a task. So the workplace email one, for instance, if I go to the master prompt, you can see that the task type is email. If I go to meeting summaries, if I go to the master prompt, you can see that the task is meeting summary, and then and so forth. So that's how you have a proper prompt library, how you organize your own personal. So you see how I've done it. I've done it from, I looked at my role, I created a folder, say this is my role. Now, AI can do so many things. I'm not saying AI is limited to using it to just work. Obviously, you can use AI to do so many things. You come up with so many new ideas on what to do. It's very cool to interact with, and it actually unlocks creativity. But if you're looking at the context of using it to improve your day-to-day work, this is how you can structure, prompts and source documents, organize them in a way that I can help you. So we're going to use this as our actual template, and we'll be using that to see how I'm going to actually implement using these, how I'm going to be plugging in these prompts and pairing them with source documents and see what outputs I get. And that's going to be basically the remaining part of the course. And then we'll conclude it, and I'll see you in the next lesson.